Good morning, friends. Today we are going to continue with Miss Daisy is Crazy, chapters 5 and 6. So I'm not going to review too much about chapters 1 through 4 because we reviewed that in person yesterday and I think you guys really got it. So I'm just going to move on with chapter 5 and 6. Okay, so Miss Daisy is Crazy, chapter 5. It's called The Most Genius Idea. After lunch we had recess, which means we get to go out to the playground and run around. Miss Daisy said we needed to burn off energy. Now this is more my style, I announced when we got outside. I made a beeline for the monkey bars. Then me and some other kids hit the swings. After that, all the boys had a contest to see who could spin around in circles the longest without throwing up. Michael Robinson won. Then we all sat down on the grass. Even though Miss Daisy was pretty cool, we all agreed that we hated school. We made a promise to one another that we would hate school forever, even if we changed our minds and decided that we liked school. That's when Ryan came up with the most genius idea in the history of the world. This was his idea. We should buy the school. Ryan told us that his father worked for this big company and that once his father's company bought some other company, just like you would go into a store and buy a candy bar. Ryan said it happens all the time. He said he didn't see any reason why we couldn't buy the school just like that. If we bought the school, what would we do with it? Michael Robinson asked. We can do anything we want with it. We'd own it. Could we turn it into a video game arcade? I asked. Sure, why not? Instead of teaching reading and writing and arithmetic, we could teach kids how to play video games. And we could ride skateboards in the hallways? Said Michael Robinson. Sure we could, Ryan asked, if we owned it. I got all excited, because if there's one thing that I like to do almost as much as playing football, it's playing video games. Oh, and riding skateboards. I started emptying out my pockets. I had a nickel, 3 pennies, and a lifesaver. The other boys emptied their pockets too. We separated all the pennies, nickels, and dimes into little piles. Then we added up all the money. We had $1.32. Wow, Michael Robinson said. That's a lot of money. I don't think it's enough to buy a school, said Ryan, who knew a thing or two about financial matters because his father worked for this big company. Well, how much do you need to buy a school? I asked. Beats me, said Ryan. We better ask Miss Daisy. We all rushed inside after recess and asked Miss Daisy how much it would cost to buy the school. Gee, I don't know, said Miss Daisy, who didn't seem to know much of anything. Why do you want to buy the school? We want to turn it into a video game arcade, I told her. What a great idea, she beamed. I love video games. There's so many schools and so few video game arcades. It makes perfect sense to turn some of those schools into video game arcades. I'll arrange a meeting with Mr. Klutz tomorrow so we can ask him if we can buy the school. But right now, we have to go to Miss Cooney's office. Miss Cooney's office is down the hall from our class. She says she's a school nurse, but personally, I think she's a spy. I'll tell you why. There's this big poster on her wall that says this. And here's a picture of the poster. I tried to read it, and it didn't make any sense at all. Even Andrea Young didn't know how to read the poster, and she knows everything. I think Mrs. Cooney has created a secret code, and she's using the poster to send mystery spy messages. I'll have to keep an eye on her. When we walked into Mrs. Cooney's office, she had us all line up in size order. I was one of the shortest kids, so I had to stand in the front of the line. Then Mrs. Cooney told us to take off our shoes. At first I thought she didn't want us to track mud all over her office. But then she told us that she was going to weigh and measure us. Obviously, she's trying to gather information about us, because that is what spies do. My friend Billy said that the heavier you are, the smarter you are, because heavy people have bigger brains. But I think Billy just says that because he's overweight. I weighed 52 pounds. Mrs. Cooney showed us this awesome ruler she has. It's made of metal and stretches out 6 feet long. When she presses a button, the whole thing shoots into her hand and disappears like magic. That is cool. I bet she has lots of other spy tools, too. She wouldn't let us play with her magic ruler, but Mrs. Cooney ran around measuring everything. She showed us that the bench we were sitting on was 17 inches high, the door to her office was 30 inches across, and her foot was 12 inches long. Hey, my foot is a foot, Mrs. Cooney explained. Aren't all feet feet? I asked. Some feet are less than a foot, and some feet are more than a foot, she replied, but my foot is exactly a foot. I had no idea what she was talking about. Mrs. Cooney wrapped the measuring tape around her forehead and announced, Look, my head is almost 2 feet in circumference. I knew that circumference was the distance all the way around a circle, and diameter was the distance through the middle of a circle. What's the diameter of your head, Mrs. Cooney? I asked. Everybody laughed, even though I didn't say anything funny. That would be hard to measure, but isn't measuring things fun? Mrs. Cooney asked. I wonder how much the scale weighs. Mrs. Cooney started to measure and weigh more things, but Miss Daisy said we had to go back to class. And now for Chapter 6. What do you want to be? At the end of the day, Miss Daisy sat on the floor, and we all sat around her. She told us to talk about what we want to be when we grow up. I want to be a veterinarian, said Andrea Young. Does anyone know what the word veterinarian means? Asked Miss Daisy. That's somebody who doesn't eat meat, said Michael Robinson. It is not, I said. That's a vegetarian. A veterinarian is someone who fought in the war. That's a veteran, Miss Daisy said. Andrea, would you like to tell the class what a veterinarian does? A veterinarian's an animal doctor. That Andrea Young thinks she knows everything, but for once I knew she was wrong. Animals can't be doctors, I said. Everybody laughed, even though I didn't say anything funny. Miss Daisy said a veterinarian is a doctor who takes care of animals. That made a lot more sense than the dumb thing Andrea said. Emily was next, and she said she wanted to grow up and become a nurse in a hospital. Why do you want to do that? I asked. People come into hospitals all sick and injured, their arms falling off, their guts hanging out. AJ, Miss Daisy said in her serious voice. Emily got all upset and ran out of the room crying. What did I say? I asked. What do you want to be when you grow up, AJ? Miss Daisy asked. I'm going to be a famous football player, I said. Really? And why'd you choose that field? Because I love football, I said. And if I was a football player, I wouldn't have to read or write or do arithmetic or go to school. My friend Billy told me that football players are really dumb. Your friend told you that? Said Miss Daisy. Yeah, Billy's really smart. He also told me that if you dig a hole deep enough, you can dig all the way to China. And if you fall into that hole, you'll fall all the way through the earth and pop right out the other side. And you'd be moving so fast that you'd shoot all the way into outer space. Michael Robinson said that sounded cool. He decided that instead of becoming a firefighter, he wanted to become one of those hole-digging astronauts. Emily came back into the room with a tissue. Everyone else went around in a circle saying what they wanted to be. This girl named Lindsay said she wanted to be a singer. Ryan said he wanted to be a businessman like his dad. Andrea Young said that if she couldn't be a veterinarian, she wanted to be a teacher like Miss Daisy. Then she gave Miss Daisy a big smile. I hate her. And that's the end of Chapter 6. So there's a set of questions for you to answer. If you need any help, reach out. We're always here to help. Have a great day, guys.